Welcome to B2B Commerce Corner. Commerce Corner is a sub-series of the eCommerce Edge podcast discussing all things B2B commerce through the lens of agencies, consultants, merchants, and more. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Pod with me, Jason Greenwood, your host. It is my pleasure to welcome someone to the podcast who I had the distinct pleasure of meeting for the very first time last year at B2B eCommerce World in Scottsdale, Arizona. Stacy Hanks, welcome to the podcast from SureWerx. I want to make sure and put that in there.
Yes.
From SureWerx, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Jason. I am thrilled to finally be here.
You went home with a lot of crystal. Did you have to split up your trophies did you have to have multiple people carry your trophies home? Because I think you guys won 2 or 3 large trophies there, and they were these giant crystal balls with a base on it. And I was thinking, geez, you're gonna have, is your baggage gonna be overweight with all the things you guys won in Scottsdale?
I was mildly concerned. I did have to put one in my suitcase and one in my backpack because I was a little concerned about getting it into the overhead with 2 of them in my suitcase.
Wow, you guys did amazingly well. SureWerx, famously a 100-plus-year-old manufacturing brand in the United States. Safety wear, safety gear, apparel, all for the working man and woman in the United States, but famously dual headquartered in the United States and in Canada. And you have manufacturing facilities all across Canada and the United States. And what you guys are doing there over at SureWerx is pretty groundbreaking, creating a unified experience for your distribution customers to be able to buy through e-commerce with you guys. You are the VP of Global Digital Commerce for SureWerx. But before we talk about SureWerx and all the interesting things you're doing over there and have done for over 5 years, how did you, and if I look back through your career, you've done a lot of work with B2Bs, but you also had a long tenure, nearly 6 years at Amazon. So how did you first get into e-commerce to begin with?
How did any of us really get into e-commerce in the first place? It's usually by accident, and you sort of fell into a really fun opportunity that sounded interesting, and you said yes, right? We didn't go to school for it. Wasn't, as much around. I was at Altria at the time, and Altria, fast-moving consumer packaged goods, very data-driven, very process and infrastructure-driven, and Amazon came looking for kind of what we call nowadays is that general athlete, right? Someone who understands that sales, that marketing, but really has that data and really has that process. And Amazon was looking to hire me for a role. I was hired for that role on Monday. That role was disbanded by Wednesday. I went into vendor management and ended up staying with Amazon for another 6 years in the e-commerce space.
Wow, what a place to cut your teeth. And obviously, this was still at a time when Jeff was still running the company. And what was it like being under this it's always day one type of mentality, fast growing company, really groundbreaking company, willing to slit their own seller partners' throats wherever necessary, famously known as a frenemy to e-commerce merchants all around the world. Many brands can't grow without Amazon, but they wish they could. And so they have Amazon. And look, as a very happy customer of Amazon, I spend way more money on Amazon every month than I would like to, but especially here in Mexico, for example, they are one of the only trusted online retailers here in Mexico. Most of the other trusted online retailers are famously marketplaces too, Mercado Libre, Coppel, but there's a couple of other very large scale, multi-billion-dollar marketplaces in Mexico, but the individual D2C brands in Mexico really aren't that big of a thing compared to large scale marketplaces. And certainly Amazon built that model, and famously, because I built my career in Australia and New Zealand, and famously, everybody in Australia in particular thought, when Amazon comes to Australia, they're not going to be able to do anything against eBay, which was a very entrenched competitor in Australia. They had the first mover advantage in Australia for many years, and now they dominate in Australia too. So Amazon is a very unique culture, and having never worked there, I'd love your take on this. It's a very unique culture to develop your skills in, right?
Yes, Amazon, when I joined Amazon in 2012, as I talk with all of my friends, we talk about 2012 to about 2015, 2016 was peak Amazon. It was move fast, break things, work hard, have fun, all of those things. And it was before, when I talk to my friends now, Amazon is just like every other big company. Eventually it becomes a little bureaucratic. You've got a little bit more red tape. You got things and process and hoops you got to jump through. Back in 2012, 2013, I was on the textbooks team, and the amount of responsibility and ownership that is given to you day one. I own the textbook page. I own these vendors. Figure it out. I was put in charge of our product data for every single book that was coming into Amazon. So if you think about books, all those systems, I got to figure out how to use the data to create on-site experiences, build search experience, create new traffic channels, test and learn pretty much anything, put things up on the homepage. The amount of, again, that responsibility and that agency to just go and do, it was incredible. There's no other time like it. I worked with the smartest people I've ever worked with in my entire life. And, Amazon was customer obsessed, and they raised the bar, and they really did. And it was a lot of fun, and it taught me just about everything I know about most of e-commerce, but I've definitely continued to learn all the exciting things that are out there.
And how, if you were to compare that to obviously Masterlock was after Amazon and then now at
Mm-hmm.
SureWerx, now obviously Masterlock and SureWerx, hardcore B2B
Yeah.
enterprises, how there's so many differences. And for the first half of my career, roughly, I was
Mm-hmm.
very focused on retail e-commerce. And then for the latter half of my career, I've been really almost exclusively focused on B2B. And it's been a real journey of learning for me. It's been a journey of learning for lots of people. It tends, at least from what I see, you either come from a e-commerce background and then you get into B2B, or you come from a B2B background and then develop your digital chops either inside a company, or you get cross-skilled, upskilled by people on your team or by outside agencies or consultants or whatever it is. But you didn't come from a pure B2B background. You came from more of a digital background and then had to pick up the B2B chops along the way. What was that transition like? And was it a little bit scary at first?
Jason, I get asked that question a lot because my background is so heavily kind of retail centric. If you go back to my very first sales job, though I was in B2B, selling postage meters, knocking on doors at small businesses for Pitney Bowes. So I've kind of come full circle in that. I try not to ever think about too much of it because to me, it's all commerce, and it's just different inputs. There's still decision criteria. It's just different decision criteria. There is still identifying a need. That need is just different. And that need is now for an enterprise. It's not for me. I'm trying to buy a new grill. I have to think about how do I keep 10,000 workers safe and keep my costs low, but it's still a decision I have to make. So it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of learning. I think the go to market strategy is probably the most different of, is it quotes? Is it a distributor? Is it a wholesaler? Kind of wading through that was the most confusing thing. But my biggest fear in life, Jason, is to be boring. So if I'm not learning something new, like, then what am I doing? Right. So I love that challenge. It's scary, but to me, it's just something new to learn. And that's what I thrive on.
And I think we bring a unique level of customer centricity because we all
Mm-hmm.
have, or a lot of us have, a significant retail digital background, retail e-commerce background. I
Mm-hmm.
think we bring a unique view and a lens on how e-commerce can be done in B2B because we have that really diverse background. And I think that, yes, while most retail purchases are more discretionary and most B2B is a job to be done, and so therefore it could be argued that in B2B you have to buy these things, whereas in retail it's an optional thing. I think we, at least from a marketing, product development, product market fit kind of perspective, we're probably a little bit more in tune with shifting sands of not only consumer demand, but also generating demand for our brands uniquely, our products uniquely,
Yes.
making sure we're at the cutting edge of not only marketing, sales, but product development. I think all those skills bode well for B2B success because oftentimes, B2Bs, rightly or wrongly, oftentimes get in a rut, right? If they are a 100
Yeah.
plus year old company, and I would say of my manufacturing and distribution clients, almost every single one of them are at least 50 years old or older.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yep.
almost always family-run businesses.
Yep.
Sometimes they've been sold to maybe PE or a corporate, but oftentimes they're still family-owned, maybe second or third generation family-owned business. And so it's easy in that environment to get stuck in a rut. We've always had a sales team. We've never
Mm.
done digital, or we've never done it. It's always been a tiny sub 10% portion of our revenue. Even if we do e-commerce, we don't really have very many expectations for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe we do EDI. Okay, maybe we do
Mm-hmm.
punch out. But in terms of a self-service portal, our customers don't really use it that much, right? And so I think there is this place where there is the biggest threat to B2Bs today, I think, is complacency. That would be
Yeah.
what I'm witnessing when I'm talking
Yeah.
to these B2Bs, and they say, this is the way we've always done it. Forrester at
Mm-hmm.
the end of 24 said that 71% of B2B buyers today are millennials and Gen Z. And it's probably much higher than that now. It's probably more like 75% now as of 2026 are millennials and Gen Z. So the buying demographic is changing super rapidly. We've got more women, we got more minorities, we got more of everything on the buying side. We've got a younger generation, a more digitally savvy generation of B2B buyers than ever before. And they don't expect a sales rep to come and knock on their
No.
door and tell them, oh, here's what I sell. Would you like to buy it from me? That's not how the world works today.
No.
And I think a lot of B2Bs are a little bit stuck in a rut. What is your take on that?
Absolutely. I think the very first thing you said of that, having that background in kind of that more D2C, that more retail centric, that is what I hugely credit to our success with today. Because what happens in B2B is they've always done it this way. The rate of change and the desire for change is so it's slow. And that's usually because they're speccing in things, right? And they might spec in a 3-year contract, a 5-year contract. So, hey, that's our revenue. We don't worry about it. We just take it. Things happen slowly. There's no need, because to your point, it's always stayed the same. But in the retail world, in that traditional consumer retail, there's new entrants every day. There's threats all the time, every time, people coming at you. And B2B, there's a little bit more, the walls are a little bit higher, right? The products are a little bit more specialized. You can't easily knock them off, right? It takes a little bit more work. But then I love what you mentioned about the buyer demographics, because that to me is one of the hugest competitive advantages of being able to see around that corner and say, okay, hey, maybe all my safety buyers, they haven't all retired yet, but they are changing. And how do I give buyers today that same experience? They are only used to buying online. And this is what I often say to people, Jason, I remind people, it's like, it's the same internet. There's not a separate internet I go to when I'm thinking about making a B2B purchase versus a D2C or a B2C type purchase. There's one internet, and the lines are blurring, right? And if you think about our work bleeds into our home life is bleeding into our work life, and we consume more today than we've ever consumed, right? Just think about how easy it is to buy things. You consume all the time. And as you consume a certain way for your personal life, you're gonna want, you just have that same expectation that your business purchases, the needs you have at work, you expect them to be fulfilled as cleanly, as easily, and as digitally as you do in your home life.
I see this very much, and I'd love your take on this. I see
Mm-hmm.
this very much as a parallel with BYOD becoming normal in our work life, bring your own device. I
Okay.
remember the day, and I was still in the workforce at the time. I remember when the first Apple iPhone came out, like the three, I think it
Mm-hmm.
was the 3G was the first one, and then the 3GS after that. And I was still using Blackberries when the iPhone
Mm-hmm.
first came out. And
Mm-hmm.
in corporate networks, you could really only use Blackberries. Like almost
Yeah,
every single company that I
that's
worked with
right.
had internally, for their internal IT and for their on the road reps, they were all
Mm-hmm.
using Blackberries, right?
Yeah.
And they said that they had, most of them had pretty hard and fast rules, even as these new touchscreen phones became the norm, like the iPhone, and then latterly Android, and for a short period of time Windows phones. And there was mass
Yeah.
resistance to allowing these third-party external devices onto internal networks. They were worried
Yeah.
about data leakage. They were worried about privacy. They were worried about absolutely. I remember these conversations at the time,
Yeah.
but the overwhelming pressure of people using these new touchscreen smartphones
Mm-hmm.
in their daily life eventually forced
Yeah.
cracks in the dam and forced IT teams to adjust and support bring your own device models, right? So they
Yeah.
had to bring in new security protocols. They had to bring in new VPN technology. There was a whole bunch of things they had to do to get ready for this wave of bring your own device approaches to
Yeah.
internal IT. And I see B2B very much the same, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's this mass resistance to this flood of demand coming
Yeah.
in through these digital channels. And even for your biggest buyers that might buy or transact through EDI or punch out, they still want a portal where they can log in and lodge a digital quote request. They still have a portal where they want to log in and check price and inventory. They still have a portal where they want to log in and maybe lodge an RMA request. They still want to log in and see the status of their credit account or check MOQs or buying increments, check the specs and data around a product. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many what I call the digital services layer
Yeah.
that people expect to be able to self-service
Yes.
today beyond the transaction. And I
Yes.
think that is something that is heavily overlooked by B2Bs because historically, the sales rep or the CS team member knew
Yeah.
where on the network drive to find the spec sheet,
Yes.
or they knew where they had spreadsheets saved to their desktop or whatever it was. And they would email a tailored set of information off
Yeah.
to either their distribution or their dealer buyers. And that's not how it works anymore.
No.
That expectation that I can self-service that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that is a baseline expectation now.
Yeah.
And a lot of B2Bs don't seem like they've got the memo yet.
No, and that's scary to think how much tribal knowledge lives in the minds of people, and then like that all has to transact digitally. And that was a guiding principle when we were setting up our platforms. And for both Canada and US, there was quite a few things that CS would say, hey, like, can we do this on the website? And I was like, absolutely, we can do it on the website. Where's the document? Who owns it now? What's the process? Oh, that process is someone is smoke and mirrors and it lives on a desktop and someone sends an email and then someone walks out, to the warehouse. And I'm like, guys, we can't do that digitally yet. We need to build the process. Let's document it, but we can't make magic happen. We still do have to start with that document and that process. And I think that's what I see when I talk to people at a lot of these conferences and I hear the people talking. It's those processes that people are so afraid of digitizing because it's also one person who owns it and they're afraid, they don't want to give it up. And it's like, well, wait a second. No, by actually being able to do more of it, being able to do it more efficiently, your life is going to get so much easier when you start to enable people to self-serve digitally. I mean, I joke around. I mean, I won't make an appointment with anyone who I can't do it on the phone or do it online on their portal with. Like, I won't call people. I won't. No, if I can't do it on your computer, like, I will find a new provider, whether it is a doctor or, getting my hair done. It's my minimum level of expectation is I can do something digitally. And that's what we expect now.
And I think it's oftentimes a case of misaligned incentives. And
Mm-hmm.
there's two areas of misaligned incentives that I think crop up, and I see this over and over again. One is penalizing sales reps for digitally sourced deals and digitally sourced transactions. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's
Oh yeah,
just another channel. And I think that's bad. And I think a lot of B2B still do that, but obviously you don't.
yeah, that is like so far like that. We wouldn't sell anything if I didn't have my sales reps still going in there and being that face, being that name. The expectation is you go and you sell big hard things, and when they come to look at that big hard thing you're selling, and I can get them to I know how to upsell and merchandise the right 12 pack of glasses, and I know that this should go with it. I will drive attachment rates all day long, and that's how I'm going to grow your sales. But I don't get that first sale unless my sales team goes in there and does the first thing. Like, I fully believe that, and anyone who's not doing that, do know that there's different sales and functionalities, but you got to incent the salespeople because it doesn't happen without the feet on the street.
And I think there's the two-sided coin of this that's beneficial to the reps. It's not just, hey, we can offload replenishment orders so that you don't have to
Yeah.
process them and key them into an ERP, and not only are we going to likely sell more because of cross-sells, upsells,
Mhm.
pre-built carts, all that sort of stuff that we can do, personalization, all that sort of stuff that we can do. The marketing capabilities of modern B2B platforms are light years ahead of where they were even 5 to 6 years ago. So that's the first thing. But secondly, I don't know a sales rep alive who likes manual tasks.
Right? Checking inventory.
like would I
Oh.
really want to be doing that when I could be knocking on more doors, when I
Yeah.
be going to more boozy Friday lunches with my clients, to more ball games on a Saturday with my
Yeah.
clients, to being able to land and expand in existing accounts by finding new needs that they didn't even know we could service for them.
Yeah.
If I'm a true sales person at heart, I want to be, I don't want to be farming as much as I want to be hunting, right? And
Yeah.
so I want to be hunting for new opportunities, not just purely farming existing opportunities. But if I'm so busy doing admin tasks, updating a CRM, if I'm just consumed with administration, and based on my research with my clients, anywhere from 40 to 60% of all, at least for the reps that track their time by activity,
Mhm.
40 to 60% of their time is pure admin. That's it.
Oof.
There's no
Yeah.
value add for them, and there is no value add for their customers. So why
Yeah.
do it if we can get a
Yeah.
portal to do the heavy lift on
Yeah.
that admin task? But then we also have a
Absolutely.
misaligned incentive with the customer because we expect them to change their behavior to adopt our technology. But luckily, with new multimodal AI combined with conversational AI, we can
Mm.
turn formerly communication only channels, i.e.,
Mm.
email, Slack, Teams, WhatsApp, we can turn those now into headless commerce channels with
Yeah.
tech sitting in the middle. And that to me is maybe one of the biggest disruptors to happen to B2B in a very long time.
I think it's going to be really exciting what we can do. And if you think about what, you know, again, coming from that retail centric background, search was very keyword driven, right? It was that single word, like what's that single word? How do I show up for grill? Like that now, and where B2B is going to shine is B2B is really solution search, right? It is very seldomly, yeah, you might have again someone search for safety glasses or a welding helmet. But the money, the opportunity, the things the salespeople want, the things we all want is that solution sell. How do I solve a problem, right? How do I think about fall protection at a 80-foot height in combination with this type of connection? Like that is not a search term, right? That's a solution. And that is where AI, that's where that Gen AI is going to come in and be able to think about the whole solution and the whole problem and be able to then start transacting commerce that way. And again, that's where we want to be, right? That's where the value is created. And I think every salesperson, you and I, we all want to create value. We don't just want to do admin tasks. We all feel better at the end of the day when we added value. We always joke around of like, did you really earn your paycheck today? You feel like you really earned your paycheck when you created like incremental value, when you did more and delivered more for something. And that's when we all say we had the best days at work.
And I think nowadays, in line with that sort of solution thinking, I hardly ever see 100% pure play manufacturers or distributors nowadays. Now, if you're primarily a distributor, you might have 20% of your catalog that's like a white labeled solution.
Mhm.
You have a contract manufactured, it's like your brand. But then the other 80% of your catalog is you're a distributor of those products. Or
Yeah.
if you're primarily a manufacturer, you might manufacture 80% of your products, but you don't want to just sell SKUs, you want to sell solutions. And so
Mhm.
oftentimes you'll be a distributor for maybe that other 20% so that you can go to market with an entire solution, whether you manufacture 100% of it or
Mhm.
not. And so I think these hybrid go-to-market models are becoming like the norm. It's becoming
Yeah.
just completely normalized in the industry. And then the final sort of string to that bow is that we're seeing a hybridization of manufacturing, distribution, and marketplace. So like the distributors
Mhm.
that are out there today, a lot of the distributors I work with, they say, look, we only want to carry physically in our warehouses like the top 20% of our moving high volume items. We'll always keep those in stock, but if we have a 4 million SKU catalog, which is not unheard of in distribution,
Mhm.
like it's pretty common in distribution to have multi-million SKU catalogs, we're
Mhm.
not going to hold 4 million SKUs in
No.
stock. It's just too capital intensive. And we can do one of two things. We can either be the seller of record for those items, sell them, and effectively ship the order off to the supplier as a drop ship order that the vendor actually ultimately ships to the customer, or we can set up an internal marketplace where that product never even has to live in our ERP. The supplier can actually load the product. They can set their own price for the product. We're going to clip the ticket. We're going to get a percentage on the sell through, effectively a commission on the sell through our own website. And that allows some of these distributors to rapidly accelerate the onboarding of suppliers into their catalog. Whereas if they have to sell absolutely everything as a first party seller, then that means the product has to live in their ERP, it has to live in their PIM system, it has to live in their commerce system. Like, they have to have all the data, they have to have the images, they have to have absolutely everything. And that sometimes is what slows down the onboarding of new suppliers into that distribution chain. And so I'd love your take on that evolving business model of B2B, where we're seeing a lot more hybridization of business models now.
Yeah, Jason, you asked me earlier the biggest differences and kind of how you play in that B2B space versus the B2C space. The selection and the importance of the tail, kind of that torso and the tail, that was probably the biggest kind of, not surprise learning, but really it was at odds with what I'd really grown up with, of that 80-20 rule, right? If I'm only worried about my top, 20% of my books doing 80% of my volume, in B2B, that's not the case. And that torso and tail selection is critical. These are still must-haves in this space, right? Because they keep people safe, they keep machines running, they keep products being made, even if they're not at volume. They're key pieces of the supply chain. So that's exactly why the go-to-market strategies, I think, really do have to update. I think there's a challenge in having too many marketplaces, right? Because you can't start diluting traffic that much, because then no one can survive if there's 1,000 marketplaces all selling ones or twos or three of each. So I do think there has to be ultimate consolidation, but it has to happen because, exactly for the reasons you outlined, millions of SKUs are required in this space, millions and millions of SKUs, fasteners of every different size, every different type of tool size, and they all have to exist. And how do you do it profitably? How do you do it in a way where the data, like the data lift, the data debt that is created by one product, a digital product record, like it's a real, it's to me, it's a living, breathing thing. It has to be fed, it has to be nurtured, it has to be updated. You have to know where it goes. You have to know how late it stays out. You have to know these things in order to effectively manage it. And that's where sometimes with the marketplaces, you have to be careful, because you can go too many places. But again, it has to exist, because that distributor is not going to carry everything. So how do you get your products there and be able to profitably and easily ship them out? I think it's going to continue to evolve for those reasons.
I think there's two really critical things that you just raised. One is viewing data as an asset, not a cost center. I think that's the first thing. I don't know too many people that would buy a car, brand new car off the lot, spend $50,000 on a new car, and they do zero maintenance on it.
Yeah.
Never change the oil, never change the transmission fluid, never wash it, never vacuum it, never never change the windscreen wipers, just do zero maintenance on this very expensive piece of equipment that you've bought. Or in the parallel would be in like the heavy equipment space. You buy a new Caterpillar for $500,000. Would you not maintain it? Would you not look after it? Would you not feed and nurture it? Would you not have it on a regular maintenance cycle? No, you would never have it be that way. So why do so many manufacturers and distributors treat data as this almost like a dirty word? It's almost like a dirty thought that, oh my God, we're going to put this much of an investment. I guess if you were to look at Fastenal, if you were to look at Zorro, if you were to look at Grainger, if you were to look at some of these major players, the vast majority of their digital spend actually goes into digital product data. And so they see it as an asset. So if they see it as an asset and they're some of the biggest in the world, wouldn't you want to view it the same way as they do?
Yes, Jason, this is probably the thing I am most passionate about. I often talk about internally at SureWerx that our product data is our most valuable currency. So how do we spend it? It is the most valuable thing we have. And it actually goes back, if we dial back farther to, I talked about at Amazon, I was the product data SME. We have books, it's called Onyx. It's a standardized language that all book data information is shared amongst every retailer, every seller of books. And they didn't know what to do with it. And they said, hey, Stacy, you're now the SME. Figure out everything with our product data and how it comes to books. So I dug in, and the amount of merchandising and marketing and sales and things I was able to do because I had such a deep understanding of data attributes that were being sent, that weren't being used, that needed to be filled out. That really instilled this passion for me for product data and for complete product data records. I took it to Masterlock. I took it to SureWerx, right? I was responsible for standing up our PIM entirely. And admittedly, I had one of our sales lead probably after I'd been there about 2 years. And it was really, just post COVID, right? A lot of distributors were really accelerating their digital efforts and they were spinning up more syndication and activation. And he said to me, he's like, Stacy, I got to be honest. When you first started, knocking on everyone's door saying that this was really important, I didn't get it. And now I get it. I get everything you're doing is the most important thing we have, hands down. And I'm happy to say, we've got 90 to 95% attribute completion for every single one of our products. Many of the distributors you have said have consider us their expert manufacturer in supplying them data. And guess what? We can activate all of our products so quickly. We can build it on your template. We can syndicate it. We can give it on our template. We can do everything. And guess what? It's driving massive business results, right? We can see every customer that we did a full refresh data with, they're growing because when you have that information, and it goes back to the solution selling and the difficulty and the challenges within B2B, you got decision criteria. There's just a lot more of it. There's so much more for fall protection. There's so many more decision attributes for a hard hat. But when you have them and you can share them, you can sell so much more and meet so many more needs.
Yes, your friend and mine, Mr. Jason Hines, says they can't
Yes.
buy what they can't find, right? If you can't find a solution to your problem, you can't buy it. So that's the first thing. But what is your take on gated versus ungated experiences? Now, I know you guys run a slightly different model in that you have this branded website with all the product data, rich product data. It can be indexed by Google. It's an open website. It can be indexed by all the large language models, etc. And then you have your SureWerx Connect platform, which is where distributors can log in and they can place their orders, check inventory, pricing, all that sort of stuff. So you run a slightly unique model in that you have this very separate experience where you have this branded product-based experience, which is easy to find, and it allows your products to be easily considered as part of the consideration set, and it's got all that beautiful, rich data that Google and the large language models absolutely love to index anyway. So perfect. You're going to be in the consideration set automatically. A lot of B2Bs for a lot of years, and still to this day, they have no separated experience. It's a single gated login-based experience, and oftentimes you can't see anything, literally nothing, except for maybe an About Us page. You can see no product information at all until you authenticate. Now, most B2Bs have started to get a little bit better religion around that, and so they'll allow you to maybe see product data, but maybe not price and inventory until you authenticate or whatever. So they have a hybrid gated model. But for the businesses out there, and I would estimate it's probably still around 50% of them that sit behind a fully gated experience. You don't even know what they carry until you authenticate. All that beautiful long tail product information that they would be able to be found for digitally, and even if they're putting a massive amount of investment into data quality and into data completeness, I think you are missing out on one of the greatest advantages of that data if all you're using it for is a better shopper experience once they authenticate. Why wouldn't you want that to be indexed by everybody and their dog so that you are part of the consideration set for every single thing that you carry? And I still think there's this closed kimono mindset in B2B that is still very pervasive. Oh, we don't want anybody to know what we carry. Oh, we don't want anybody to know what our pricing is. Oh, we don't want anybody to know our inventory. So we're just going to gate the whole bloody thing, and that solves all of our problems. And unfortunately, that's very much a cut off your nose to spite your face approach, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I think this goes to that difference, that legacy of B2B. It's always been done this way. We don't need to get out there, right? And what that B2B might be doing is they're making decisions for someone, often themselves, or they're making a decision. Maybe we don't want a competitor to look at this information. We want the distributor to have to call us. We want people to call us. Guess what? That's not real life anymore, unfortunately, because if you're not online, you don't exist. So it's very intentional that our distributors they're our most important lifeline, right? Like we sell to our distributors have to sell to our end users. We still have a lot of end user work. How do our end users find out about our information if not through this beautiful website? Now, we don't put pricing out there, we don't put inventory out there.
Yep.
But you can go and discover all of our products because we want an end user to go out there and say, this is the solution. This is what my LLM told me to go find. This is what I wanted. We want that distributor to be able to look up quickly and go and double check when they're on site with their end user of what type of product is the right thing. And then we have this distributor portal that by nature is designed to help our most important customer, the distributors, right? Find product, pricing, inventory, order quickly, right? Most of the time we're shipping out any orders that come through our website, they're shipped out within 24 hours, if not that day. Like that's the most important thing on that. But there's this whole digital world where if people can't find you, people aren't going to call. Like that's a very 1995 kind of mentality of how you go to business of we won't tell anyone because it's not good for us. No, the name of the game is what's good for who's buying. You do whatever the person who is buying your product needs, that's you do it for them. And that's how you grow your business.
And I think also you already have to do amazing work, especially if you're a manufacturer like SureWerx and you've got this house of brands that you
Yeah.
own. You've already got to do so much work to get good product data into your distributors' hands anyway, so that they can either sell it through their website, sell it through their physical locations, whatever it might be, because and oftentimes there's a dealer network involved. So there's all sorts of layers of this B2B sales effort, right? Some of it's physical, some of it's digital, some of it's belly to belly selling, etc. But you've already got to do a significant amount of work in this area anyway to be able to get good data out into the field around your products, into the people's hands that matter, the procurement specialists that are buying this stuff, etc. Why wouldn't I leverage all that cost, all that expense, all that effort? Why wouldn't I leverage that to also acquire new customers digitally? Like, why wouldn't I use that? Because nowadays that digital customer acquisition piece is more important than it's ever been. And if 70+% of B2B buyers are digital natives, they're going to start not just a product search, but they're going to start their supplier search online. And so the reality is, if they don't know you exist because they can't find your products online, then they can't buy from you. It's not like these backroom whispers like there used to be. Oh, who's the distributor for this thing? Or who's the distributor for this thing? Or who makes this unique product in the world? Product discovery now, right? It's all happening online first. Yes, there are still trade shows, and I think those will always exist. So product discovery in B2B happens many different ways, but a significant portion of the research aspect of supplier onboarding happens digitally first. And I think that is a very big missed opportunity today in B2B still. And what's weird is, depending on the category and depending on the vertical, the data shows that only about 40 to 60% of B2Bs offer any kind of digital commerce experience today at all. Now, how is it that 98%, the data says also that around 98% of retailers offer some form of e-commerce experience today? Now, that's a big gap to bridge. And not only that, but what I like to say is, as a consultant, why wouldn't I want to work in B2B versus B2C, D2C? Because there's already massive incumbency in the B2C and D2C world. There's not that many completely greenfield project opportunities in B2C and D2C. In B2B, they're mostly greenfields projects. And so that's an exciting opportunity for those of us that love digital.
Yeah, it's so exciting because there's, as I like to say, with anything in digital, there's nothing but opportunity, right? Because for all the reasons of, in the retail space, we have large incumbents that are really hard to displace. B2B is the opposite. B2B is so disaggregated. B2B is everywhere. That's why you've got Amazon, you've got Lowe's, you've got Home Depot, all trying to get into whether it's B2B or this construction space or the government space, because they see the value in, they can take the lead in this vastly underserved opportunity that someone's going to move on, because for all the reasons we've discussed, customers want it. Like, customer demographics are changing. They want to be able to go and experience digitally. They want to do the research, right? People have less trade show budgets. People don't want to travel less. All of these things, it's discovery, I do think, is a little bit more of a challenge in the B2B space, because where does the right discovery point live, right? Is it LinkedIn? Is it marketing on LinkedIn? No. Is it a product discovery video on TikTok? Not yet, but it probably will be in 5 to 8 years.
And it is for
Could be
some. It
sooner.
is for
Yeah,
some.
for some. So our cowboy hard hats do fantastically on socials. It's wild, like, to see them when they pick up on these things. So in summary, coming back to, yes, B2B is where the opportunity is, because everyone's so afraid to be that first mover, right? I love what COVID did for the
Yes.
B2B space, because it jump started it. It gave it the kick in the butt that it needed to start moving a little bit faster and start accelerating ideas that I think the customers wanted, right? We know the customers wanted it because they reacted, because we saw that growth in digital. We saw that growth in what our distributors were doing to meet that market demand of, hey, not just because we had to during COVID, but I think because they wanted to, right? Because we've seen that trajectory continue. So how do we introduce more? How do we optimize more? And how do we do more to capture those dollars?
And when you first got to SureWerx, was there any evangelism that you needed to do around the ROI of digital capability beyond the transaction? And the reason I ask this specifically is when we were in Scottsdale, Paul Dorfono, who had some fresh Deloitte digital data that he was talking about from stage, mentioned that even for B2B enterprises that do e-commerce today, the average is 9% of revenue comes through digital channels. And that's for people that do e-commerce. Many don't, but of the ones that do, only about 9% of revenue comes through digital channels. But what that neglects to show is all of the automation of many different tasks, not only for you, but your customer, that they're able to self-serve through a portal beyond the transaction. And the other thing is, and I was thinking when he was talking about this data, I was like, wow, that's mind-blowing data. It's crazy data. Yeah. Like the fact that it's not 25% is wild. But I was also thinking to myself, but there are many sales opportunities, like with government procurement, with large-scale corporate procurement, et cetera, where you cannot even tender for those opportunities unless you can serve them digitally, whether it be through EDI or punch out or through self-service e-commerce. And so there is a channel opportunity here that many B2Bs cannot even think about executing on, or they don't even know that opportunity exists because they don't have digital capability. And so they will never get a sniff at those opportunities. And so I think that if we are only selling the benefits of the transaction through digital channels to our businesses, we're probably severely underselling what the benefits that brings to our businesses.
Yeah, Jason, a lot of ways I can respond to that. So I think there's a couple things that hit me first. And the first is I was very lucky in coming to SureWerx, and I specifically chose SureWerx because at the time they had just purchased a PIM system. And to me that said, hey, if they're leaning into a PIM already as kind of an early stage B2B safety manufacturer, like they've got some passion and interest in this digital space. And we had already had the Canadian platform for 3 years at that point, and it was doing very well. And so from a perspective of joining SureWerx, hey, look, I ask for a lot of money. I've always got to have an ROI. I always have to be able to account for that. But that willingness and an openness of, hey, what got us here isn't going to get us there. And I think it's digital that's going to get us there. So Stacy, like, what have you got to say? What are you pitching? Let's try to do it. That was really helpful. And I think one of the things you talked about, that value of the transaction. So my entire career and everything I look at when I think about even when I was in the more B2C space versus B2B is I won't ever channelize a customer or a transaction. And it's never about that single transaction from that person. It's about building that loyalty and building the customer when and where and how they want to do business. Because there is not a single customer we have that is 100% digital. There's not a single customer that we have that is 100% manual, right? There's a mixture. Now, do the mixtures vary, and do the ones that are more digitally penetrated grow faster? Yes, of course they do, Jason. But it is the value of offering a customer what they want when they're ready to purchase. Think about you and I. I mean, I don't do most purchases digitally. That doesn't mean I still don't like to go to the store and shop and make a purchase. It's the same thing with any of our customers, right? They're going to use an EDI transaction. They're going to call in and email, and they might need to talk with a CS rep to get something, and they're going to go to the portal, right? And they're probably going to buy more when they go to the portal. But I will never channelize that customer or that transaction. I will talk about that 360-degree value and that loyalty that is created when you build up that stickiness. And that's what digital does. Digital is the stickiest thing we have out there. And that's where I get, really excited and how I pitch and sell internally to get those investments, because it's going to help the whole account.
And how do you make sure that you keep your finger on the pulse of what your distributors want in terms of services? Is it a CSAT score? Is it an NPS score? Is it customer interviews? Is it a feedback form on the dealer website? Is it all of the above? And the reason I ask this question specifically is because a lot of the first time e-commerce deployments that I'm working across, and I'll give you just one example. I was working about a year and a half ago. I was working with a manufacturing business, second generation, family owned business. They were a hybrid, a light manufacturer and mostly distribution customer. And so they were selling to distributors, and they were also selling to OEM manufacturers of other goods. And so they were a supply chain supplier of certain items. And they had never done e-commerce before, and they had never done extensive customer interviews about what their customers loved about doing business with them versus the challenges that they had. So I was leading those interviews, and I was doing those in private. So I didn't have their account manager on the phone or whatever, so that they could feel free to be honest with me about the pros and cons of doing business with that supplier. And so when we were talking to them and we used terms like e-commerce or a portal or whatever, oftentimes we didn't get a great response from them. But what we did get was very clear opportunities to massively improve the service experience via a portal. For example, one of the people I interviewed, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, one person I interviewed, they said, if they did e-commerce, okay, great. Maybe we'd use a portal. Maybe we wouldn't. We really love our account manager, Bob, Jane, whoever their account manager was. We really love the service that they give us. Would we spend more? I don't know. And would it be great? I don't know. But our biggest issue is we don't know, and we have never known, unless we ring up our account manager, when a container of goods is going to hit our receiving dock, for example. Now, they said that's a massive problem for us because we only have limited space in our receiving dock. We only have a limited receiving, devanning, and put-away team. And I need to know in advance, if I'm going to receive a container of goods, I need to know roughly when that's going to hit so that I can schedule my teams to be able to clear that receiving dock, because until we get it into our warehouse, I can't start shipping it to my customer. And so that turnover rate from the time I receive a good till the time it gets in my customer's hands and I get the cash, that cash conversion cycle is massively important to distribution businesses that are running on maybe a 4% net margin. It's massive for them, right? And so they were going, if I could just have that, that would massively improve my experience with the supplier. Forget about e-commerce. Just give me somewhere where I can find out, if the container's on the water, when it's likely to hit my warehouse. Just do that, and maybe just even give me some email updates, automated email updates around that, to where I don't have to email or call my account manager. Game changing. Sometimes it's the little things. It's not the big things, right?
Yep, absolutely. And I think we do all of that. We sent out surveys before we launched. I've done customer interviews. It's shocking also too, because your salespeople will tell you one thing, and it'll be the most important thing from that week, and you might never hear it again. But to your point of, it's a simple, easy thing, right? There's no magical silver bullet. It's just information and making it easy for people, right? And asking them the questions of what would make their life easier, right? And I would say the third thing that I look a lot at is the data, right? What did they search? How far did they scroll on the page? Where did they abandon? All those data metrics, that you can get from kind of Google. And usually it's very easy things, right? It's realizing that they couldn't find a brand, right? And in our PIM structure, we bury workwear, under PPE. Well, no one could find the workwear, and customers were calling us saying, "Don't you as your Pioneer, where's your workwear?" And we were like, "Oh, yeah, because our taxonomy, within our PIM, that's fantastic. Technically, workwear is a PPE, but customers, we moved it right up there, and all of a sudden, glance views to workwear product pages increases 250%, right? Very, very simple. This the most simple thing of
Change you
listening to
can make.
customers say, where's your workwear? So
Yeah, sometimes it's the little things, not the big things. You stack 100 little things over a year
mhm.
and you make those little tweaks, those little changes. And what is it? We overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 10 or something like that. I forget exactly
Yeah.
how that saying goes, but we definitely, I think sometimes there is the swing for the fences type of initiatives
Mhm.
inside these businesses, these big bang, boil the ocean type of initiatives, whether it's a PIM, whether it's an OMS, whether it's a commerce platform, whether it's a new ERP. Like there's these big, giant, sexy
Mhm.
projects, but there's also just hygiene factors, right?
Yeah.
There's just the little things that if you just do them consistently, day in, day out. Maybe it's site search optimization on a Friday where you go and you try to find
Mhm.
all of the no results queries and you try to fix just the no results queries, and that's all you do. Never mind boostberry, never mind cross promotion, never mind all that stuff. How about we just make sure that there's almost never a no results query on our website? There are certain little tiny hygiene things that done well and done consistently yield such wild results after a year of doing it that I
Yeah.
think because they seem small, maybe we
Yeah.
overlook them, and I think that's a big risk.
Yeah, Jason, I would call ruthless prioritization of excellent execution is any organization's single biggest competitive advantage, right? I won't ever let my team have too many objectives because I'm like, if you're trying to do too many things, you're not going to do them well. And like I'm here. I don't want to sound terrible and say I'm here for perfection, but I am in the sense of if you set a clear goal and you can execute that goal and you do the same thing and you're consistent and it's repeatable and it's scalable, like that's where the dreams are made. It's not exciting, it's not super sexy, right? Because we want the big swing for the fences. Showing up day in, day out, excellent execution, that's where the magic happens, and that's where you see those improvements over time to really deliver results and create this meaningful best in class site experience because all the little things just work. And when the little things don't work, that that takes everything off the rails, right?
Well, I think it also, one of the things about B2B is if the little things don't work, that destroys trust. And if you don't have trust, you might be able to get a buyer, a distributor, a dealer, whatever it is to your website once. But if they have a bad experience, you're going to have a 10x harder time, even if you
Mm-hmm.
fix all the
Yeah.
things that are problematic with your website. Even if you go and spend $300,000 on a new implementation, which is pretty common these days, that's not an obscene sum of money for a major
Mm-hmm.
B2B e-commerce implementation. And even if you put all that work in, trying to get them to trust you after they've been burned, it's once bitten, twice shy. It's
Yeah.
really hard. And so I think focusing on the basics and making sure that the basics are bulletproof, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what creates trust. And that's what creates a willingness to test and try these new features of a
Yeah.
digital platform because they trust the basics. If they don't trust the basics, and that, for example, if they don't trust your site search, your most basic function of the website, to
Yeah.
uncover the products that they're looking for and being able to facet and filter by the things that are important to them, then why would they try any of the other features and functions of your
No.
portal? So it's like you got to crawl, walk, run with some of this stuff, don't you?
Absolutely. And I think you make so many valid points in that customer trust, right? And there's trust busters, right? And you have to be able to identify those trust busters and articulate them. Because if you have a trust buster, like especially in the retail world, a trust buster is a kiss of death, right?
Mhm.
People don't come back. And I get sometimes nervous when I work in some of these technical implementations because we talk a lot about the MVP, and sometimes that MVP can be a trust buster because there are certain things that you can't launch with if you don't have some of this basic functionality that anyone who has ever turned on a computer and gone on the internet expects, right? And sometimes I think in this B2B space, we get a little too comfortable, right? We want to do it the way we always did. Well, let's do the MVP. They can just do this one thing on the site. Guys,
Yeah.
there's about five things that anyone expects from a site, and you have to do those five things well. Otherwise, you've lost them. They aren't coming back because people just don't come back after they've had a bad experience.
Yeah, no question about it. Look, I could pick your brain for another hour easily. We've been chatting for almost an hour now. It's absolutely flown by. You're so articulate. You're ish very well. You're very confident. You. I've never worked under you before, but you seem like a great leader. Everybody from your team seemed like they loved you in Scottsdale. So you're obviously doing something right.
Thank you.
If you could change at the snap of your fingers something about B2B e-commerce, the industry as a whole, if you could sprinkle your brand of fairy dust on it, what would it be?
It'd be execution and product data. Like everything would have a process, and there'd be a little bit more standardization across how to distribute product data, more similar into that B2C space.
Wow, I couldn't agree more. Listen, if people
Jason's going to
to,
love that answer, right?
no, it's like the fact that is still your answer in 2026 tells me that we have a problem on our hands as an industry that we have to collectively solve for. There are some data suppliers like DDS. There are some AI tools that help with that. There are solutions out there, but they are many cases quite fragmented still. They are quite piecemeal still. They only work on maybe the top 20% of your catalog. They're not maybe as scalable, at least from a cost perspective. They're maybe not as scalable as we'd like them to be yet. And we're pretty rapidly going to get to a place where traditional PIM systems without AI that we've reached the point that we can do everything with them that we can without that next level of technology being able to take buckets of unstructured data and layer AI agents over the top of them and bring meaning to those even when they're unstructured. And so I think let's put it this way, you and I are going to have a job to do easily until we retire and way beyond that. So you and I never have to worry about not
Job
having
security.
work to do.
I love it.
So it's very exciting. But people want to get a hold of you, or they want to see more of your writing and hear more from you. Where's the best place to find you online? Is it LinkedIn? I'll put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. But other than that, how do you like people to reach out to you and have a chat?
LinkedIn is the best place.
Amazing. Now, as we do come down to the end of our time together, now is where I get to flip the script. I get to turn the microphone over to you and let you ask me one question, any question you like. So, Stacy Hanks from SureWerx, what is your question for me today?
Oh, Jason, what was your biggest accomplishment over the last 6 months?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think it's funny because this is not directly consulting related, but I got over 600 episodes of my podcast released.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you. So that was I've done some really great work with clients, and look, the practice is growing every day, and I love what I do. I just can't imagine waking up and doing anything else. But pod fade is a thing. Like, it's a legit thing. And I don't know what the stats are, something like less than 10% of podcasts ever get over 50 episodes. And I think it's 1 or 2% of episodes ever get past episode 100. So it is very few podcasts actually have any form of staying power. And for me, there's multiple benefits to sticking with this. As long as I have, it's to give a platform to very smart people to be able to tell their story, people like you. It gives me a chance at being educated on things that I'm not an expert in. So I get to talk to very smart people that are smart about things that I'm not smart about or don't know about. So that's amazing. I get to put that information out into the world, and hopefully, I'm a big believer in a rising tide floats all boats. I'm a big believer that, hey, if we can put information out there that helps our whole industry get better, then we're all winners because of that, because it's going to create a bigger market overall for digital. And I think that's an important thing to do. And it's also my love letter back to an industry that's given me an amazing life. And I had some really genuine leaders and experts in this industry back 26 years ago when I started in this industry, who shared freely of their knowledge and their experience with me to help me get up to speed on the industry. And this is my way of sending the ladder back down again. But I also think that it's in some respects, it's like, I don't have kids. My wife and I don't want kids, but this is forming the backbone of my legacy. So I want something to outlive me, and I want something to be able to hopefully continue to benefit our industry and our world positively long after I'm gone and long after I stop creating content. And that's a big focus of why I do what I do. And then finally, with the advent of AI, I'm in the process of creating a full vector database on all my content that then is searchable, and it allows me to scale beyond just me. And beyond that one-to-one, high-touch, high-dollar consulting, to be able to scale that in a digital twin type of way That to me is super valuable because I can get it out to more places then, and more people will be able to afford to access that information. And so I think there's multiple strands to this, but that's why I think being consistent has value, because like when I started doing this very consistently a few years ago, I had no idea that AI was going to get to a place where I could create a digital twin of myself based on my content.
Yeah.
I didn't like the AI wasn't that big yet. Really, we've only been this AI thing
Yeah.
for 2 years. So
Yeah.
that's my answer is really, I think the podcast for me, it's a
Great.
labor of love. I don't make
That's
money
awesome.
from it, but it is something that is totally fulfilling at the same time.
That's awesome. That is fantastic. It's certainly an honor to be here, and I've very much enjoyed being able to access your content, your podcast. It's certainly given me a lot of information. So thank you
Thank you
for
for
doing
being
what
here.
you do.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you so much for contributing and speaking with me so openly. Very
Yes.
open kimono today. I really appreciate
Yes.
it. And hopefully I'll see you in
Yes.
Indianapolis later this year at B2B
That's the
e-commerce
plan.
world. So thank you. Can't wait to speak to you again soon.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.